Welcome to Basket of Tales, a time travel into the world of stories.
Hello everyone, this is Mrs. from Basket of Tales. I hope you all are doing great. Well, we are back with the series of Vikram and Bethaal. And today I am going to share a story about a giant and a brave boy. Let's begin. The saga of Vikram trying to catch Bethaal continued. As Vikram managed to get hold of Bethaal, he soon started narrating another story. This story is about a king of Chitrakoot, Roopdutt. One fine morning, Roopdutt decided to take a horse ride around his kingdom. He was passing by a lake. He spotted a beautiful young girl and he instantly fell in love with the girl. He went ahead and wanted to talk to her, but she got scared and ran away towards her home. The king wanted to know more about the girl and he got very curious. Hence, he followed her till her home. He really adored her beauty and innocence, so he decided to speak to her father about marrying her. The father immediately agrees. He asks the girl, and she admits that she likes the king too. So they both get married. Next day, the king had to return back to his palace. So soon after having their breakfast, both the king and the new queen start their journey to the kingdom. On their way, they both decide to take a break. By then, they are actually very tired and thirsty. The king says, "Let's walk a little further and see if we can find some pond to quench our thirst." As they keep walking, they land in a haunted cave, only to realize that the cave belongs to a giant monster. The king says, "This cave doesn't seem to be safe. Let's get out of from here." But they couldn't escape from the giant monster. He spots them and is very hungry. He wants to eat them and make his meal. Helpless king pleads for his life. He says, "Please let us go. I am the king of Chitrakoot, and if you let me go, I will promise to send another human in 7 days. Well, the monster starts thinking. He says, "Okay, I will trust you and let you go. But if you fail to stay on your word, then I will come out of this cave and attack everyone in your kingdom, and I shall not leave you either." Finally, the giant lets them go. As soon as the king and the queen reach their palace, he calls for a quick discussion with his minister. He gets restless and scared because of the promise he made to the giant. He knew that nobody would ever be ready to become the meal for the giant. One of his wise ministers come up with an idea. He says, "My lord, I don't think anyone would ever be ready to volunteer to sacrifice their own life. And why would someone do that? However, if we can find a poor, needy person, we can reward his sacrifice by gifting him a pot of gold. I am sure he or she would surely accept this offer out of need." The king agrees and instructs his ministers to send out an announcement right away. Days passed, but they couldn't find a single person who would be willing to sacrifice his life, because the reward makes no sense if the person himself is not alive. The entire palace is now worried. In the same village lived a poor old man with his family. He had 5 sons. When the poor man hears about the king's announcement, he comes home and tells his wife about it. The oldest son accidentally hears them talk. He decides to sacrifice his life for the sake of his family. He says to himself, "We have been fighting poverty for so many years. Being the eldest of all, this is the time for me to do something for my siblings and parents. With the reward, they can build a nice home and live happily." He then goes to his father and tells him about his decision. And the father, without even giving it a second thought, takes him to the king. The boy is now sent to the giant. The king decides to send 2 of his soldiers along with him to guide him till the cave. On his way, the boy suddenly laughs loudly, and within a few seconds he starts crying bitterly. No one understands why he is behaving so. Before reaching the cave, he promises himself that no matter what, I'm not going to become the giant's meal. I will fight with the giant. And as soon as he reaches the cave, the giant tries to attack him and the 2 soldiers. He fights and finally succeeds. Now at this point, Bethaal pauses and asks Vikram a question. He asks, "So why do you think the boy laughed and cried at the same time?" Well, let me have you all think. Who did the right thing? Can you guess? Well, let's hear it from Vikram now. He says, well, the reason why the boy cried was because he was feeling helpless and dejected, as how would his own father trade him for money? His life didn't matter to his father. But he later laughed at the king's selfish behavior, because the king, who is supposed to protect the lives of his people, is the one who decided to send him to the giant. Both his feelings were valid, because when you are heartbroken and helpless, you don't have control over your feelings. And I'm sure the boy must have realized that eventually everyone has to face their own struggles in their life. And this made him gather courage to fight against the giant bravely. Kudos to the little boy. Well, Vikram's answer does impress Bethaal, but as you know, he is a naughty ghost. He giggles and says, "You speak and I leave. Catch me if you can." So children, always remember, fortune always favors the brave and never helps a man who does not help himself. Let's wait what happens in our next story. Stay tuned. Happy listening.